Welcome back to this live coverage of the 33rd Arab Summit hosted here in the Kingdom of Bahrain for the very first time. We're very lucky to have with us now Mr. George Middleton, who is the chairman of Red House Marketing, in addition to being the publisher for Bahrain This Month Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Carla. I'm really well, thank you.
Now, I understand someone who is very heavily involved in the media. I mean, there are so many provisions available with this amazing media center to make, the job of the media much more functional and also quite comforting. Can you tell us a little bit how you appreciate all of these provisions as someone who works in media?
Actually, I'm very proud as a Bahraini journalist now, since 2012, to be able to appreciate the fact that Bahrain has been a pioneer and a forerunner in most aspects of industry and development within the region. We were obviously the first country in the region to find oil back in the 1920s. We were the first people to institute universal education for the people here. We're the first country in the region to have actually been involved with basically media. Bahrain television and Bahrain radio in the 1970s were an icon and were replicated everywhere else in the region. So Bahrain is a pioneer in general, and I'm very proud to be part of that. And obviously, hosting the Arab League Summit for the first time is a wonderful celebration of Bahrain's position as a major driving force of improvement and development within the region.
So, I mean, everybody is super busy with the Arab Summit, naturally so. And what do you have prepared in store for the coverage of this event?
Well, we have a couple of high-level interviews planned for inclusion within not only the segment of the magazine which is published monthly, but also on our wider appeal, which is through our social media collaterals, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. We have digital media extensions to all that, and we will be covering any aspects and interviews that we can get which are meaningful. There's also another WAIF, World Environmental, World Entrepreneurs Investment Forum, which is also taking place at the same time. And there is some connection between the findings of the WAIF conference, which can be submitted to the Arab League Summit on Thursday, I believe. So there is a synergy. There's a lot going on. There's thousands of visitors and international entrepreneurs visiting Bahrain, as well as the delegates from the Arab League. So it's a very exciting time and a lot to talk about.
And is there anything in particular, any kind of outcome that you expect to get from your experience with the summit?
I think I've count myself very privileged to have been accredited here as a local journalist, and I do hope that the outcomes will ensure a closer understanding between Arab nations as to their position in the world, moderation, peace and compassion being brought into their deliberations for the benefit of everybody internationally.
What is it about the Kingdom of Bahrain that makes it such a great ground for a media professional to conduct themselves?
Well, I firmly believe that Bahrain is the freest media platform in the whole of the region, compared to even our brotherly GCC states. The tremendous press freedom that is offered in Bahrain, the toleration, which is unique, especially in this region, is something which has been able for somebody like me, an initial foreigner who has now become a Bahraini citizen, to be able to develop a meaningful business based on information and communication. And Bahrain is, the intrinsic culture of Bahrain is based upon kindness and compassion and hospitality, and that is a huge bonus. That's why everybody who comes to Bahrain, essentially the vast majority, don't ever want to leave it. If they do, they always have fond memories and affection for this beautiful country.
Very well said. And we've talked a little bit about it, but for you as a Bahraini, what do you feel when Bahrain has achieved this amazing privilege of being able to host this groundbreaking summit?
Well, obviously it has to be the guidance of our leadership here, King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, and of course the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, Sheikh Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa. So it is their leadership and their openness in being able to become a bastion of peace and understanding throughout the whole region that has made is possible, and I hope that impression will have an impact on the deliberations of all the leaders from the Arab world who are visiting at this time.
I absolutely agree, and their vision definitely is something that guides everything that the Kingdom of Bahrain does. And in terms of, for example, networking, have you had a chance to network with other journalists from around the Arab world, or
Just
are you hoping?
Briefly, last night there was a media center opening. I was there. I still plan to do a lot more, and listen to other people's points of views. But we're here to learn and communicate.
So thank you so much for that, and I think it's really important to talk about, for example, the fact that the role of journalism is essentially to disseminate information that can seem quite inaccessible to some, or quite larger than life, and deliver it in a way that, you know, anyone can kind of digest. So can you tell us a little bit about the process behind that, especially with something as large as the Arab Summit?
Okay, obviously there are going to be a number of competing interviews and interpretations, media-wise, worldwide, on exactly what is being said. So I think this summit is an opportunity for the Arab League in general, for Arab nations, to put down their foot as being an honest broker in international affairs, and not to just be sidelined or be particularly connected to one side or another side. So I think it's a question of moderation and emphasizing the importance of being a unified global force, and that's the main issue of this summit, is my hope and understanding.
Very succinctly and beautifully said. And now I'd like to ask you, with events like this, I think, and in general, the media is always changing, right? Like, it's always evolving. How do you see media, particularly here in the Arab world, with events and opportunities like this, changing the media landscape in the Arab world?
Well, I think the most important aspect of this is actually the new media technologies, which are making, social media in particular, is making it, it's obviously a positive and negative force at the same time. And I think the Arab world should ensure that their communications are perhaps as open to interpretation from international people as much as possible. But I think maybe an even more prolific English language interpretation of Arab views would be very useful for the world at large. Something which actually tells the fact. A BBC, an open BBC, but from an Arab perspective.
Brilliant. And before we conclude, is there anything you'd like to share with us or with our viewers?
I would just like to say that this is an amazing innovation here. I mean, to see this hotel turned into a media conglomerate with thousands of cameras and international journalists from everywhere, mostly, of course, from the Arab world, is something which I think is much deserved and will have a fantastic impact on the future, I hope.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Khaled.
So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We have much more coming on this very special coverage of the 33rd Arab Summit, held for the very first time here in the Kingdom of Bahrain.